Hi guys, it's Angela here. Thank you for joining me on this video. So today I'm going to just cover a question that I've been asked a couple of times in the comments below. People wanting to know whether I believe in God or Jesus or the Bible now that I've left the Jehovah's Witnesses. So I thought I would cover that today. Now, if this is your first time visiting my channel, then thank you so much for being here. Please feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell button. And if you've previously subscribed, then thank you so much for coming back. So, do I believe in God, Jesus and the Bible? Well, I was born into the Jehovah's Witness religion. My mother gave birth to me and I was straight into the Kingdom Hall. So over the years, growing up, I had no choice. And it's interesting that people tend to believe, their belief systems tend to be either based on where in the world they live. So for example, if you live in India, you're more likely to be Hindu, a Muslim, a Jain, or one of those religious groups based on which part of the country you live. If you're in, say, like Israel, Palestine, you're more likely to be a Jew. If you're in Poland, maybe, so you see what I mean. Depending where you're born, it often determines your religion. Also, your family history as well tend to often determine your religion. So if your parents were, for example, a Catholic, you're often born into Catholicism, and it gets passed down the line. And it was in my case, my parents were Jehovah's Witnesses, so we were born into the Jehovah's Witness religion and it was passed down. So I had, up until I was a teenager and was able to think for myself, I had little choice about what I believed. The Jehovah's Witness religion was my religion. That was what I was taught, and that was what I grew up believing, and I knew no different. I believe that all of the religions were false. They all worshipped and served false gods, and people who were not Jehovah's Witnesses were going to die at Armageddon, and Jehovah's Witnesses were the only one true religion. And that was what I was taught, and had nothing to compare it to. So as a Jehovah's Witness, I was not allowed to look at other religions, to go to churches, to go to temples or mosques or synagogues. I was not allowed to explore other religions. I wasn't even allowed to go into RE. When I was at school, we studied, or other children, I should say, had the opportunity to study RE, which stands for religious education. And in religious education, you get to study and explore from an independent perspective other religions and other religious beliefs. And as a Jehovah's Witness, wasn't allowed to do that. And Jehovah's Witnesses, they say, I mean, interestingly, a few weeks ago, I had some Jehovah's Witnesses knock my door, and I'll put a link to that video below. And I said to them when they came to my door, that Jehovah's Witnesses don't have the opportunity to explore other religions. That's forbidden. To which I was told, well, they do. And I said, well, how so? And she says, well, we get to explore it in our magazines. And I said, yes, but what happens is the writers of the magazine and the governing body, they filter what they want you to know about other religions. They're not going to tell you that the Catholics do good works, or the Muslims, feed the poor, or in the Sikh temples they have, they cook, and anybody who's homeless or hungry or need a meal can come in and eat. They're not going to tell you all the good stuff that goes on in other religions. They're going to filter what they share with you so that it's skewed towards you believing that their religion is bad and they worship false gods and all the rest of it, and it's going to be in support that Jehovah's Witnesses are right and is the true religion. So I said, that's the only way that Jehovah's Witnesses get to know what other religious groups do and what they believe. You're not allowed to do it independently. And she had to accept my point. She had to, because, I said to her, can you just go into a temple and sit in their services, or can you go to a Catholic meeting and just sit there and worship? I said, no, you can't. That you're not allowed to do that. So that really was my point, and she had to accept that. But so I wasn't allowed to explore any other religion or any other denomination of Christianity, and I was only allowed to read Jehovah's Witnesses magazines, read Jehovah's Witnesses books, go to Jehovah's Witnesses meetings. So everything that I learnt and was taught, instilled in me and indoctrinated in me, was from a Jehovah's Witness perspective. I didn't believe in the Trinity. I wasn't, so many things. So that was what I grew up with, and that was what I taught, and that was what I thought I believed. And I stress that point. I thought I believed it because that was the only thing I knew. So when I stepped away from the Jehovah's Witness religion and I started looking at things independently and thinking for myself, I started to see things differently. And it's interesting, I can always remember, and I can't remember, I wish I can remember which magazine it was, but I'm sure somebody who was around in the 80s, late 80s, may remember. But we had a magazine, it was a Watchtower study article, and it was the late 80s. Yeah, late 80s, probably early 90s. And in that Watchtower, it said that there's no need to think for yourself, because that's what the governing body does. They do all the research and they think and research for you, and we have to guard against independent thinking. And the reason I remember that so clearly was because after the meetings on the Sunday, one of my Bible studies lived about 5 minutes away from the Kingdom Hall, and I went round to see her for our Bible studies, and she asked me, what happened at the meeting today. So I was telling her, and I was sharing the Watchtower study article with her. And when I got to that point, the Watchtower says we don't need to do research ourselves, and we don't need to think for ourselves because independent thinking is dangerous, she was horrified. Now at this point I was so indoctrinated. I believe that they said, drink the Kool-Aid. I would have probably drunk the Kool-Aid. I was so indoctrinated. And she, being a study and still thinking independently, when I told her that, she was outraged. And she said, Angela, why would you not want to think for yourself? Why would you not want to do that? Why would you allow somebody to think for you? It doesn't make sense. And that really was an eye-opener for me. And I remember sort of like trying to defend what the Watchtower had said, and she was having none of it. And and this is a point for any Jehovah's Witnesses that are watching this, but there comes a point where you have to say, I hear what the Jehovah's Witnesses say, but I just need to explore this for myself. I just need to think for myself. Because you'll be amazed. And, if what the Jehovah's Witnesses say is true, they will welcome scrutiny. They will welcome it. But that's just a little thing for you. Stop and think independently and research independently. And research, not, see, when I say to my family who are still in, why don't you research it? And they say, oh, well, I have. Well, what have you researched? Oh, the Watchtower publications. No. That's very convoluted. That's not independent research. It's convoluted. You're only getting the Jehovah's Witnesses perspective. Don't be afraid to step outside of Jehovah's Witness material and research it for yourself. If they're quoting a book, go research that book, go to the library, get that book, download that book, and read the book for yourself. Yeah? Don't rely just on the Jehovah's Witness publication, because it's a skewed view. So, so as I was saying, my view of the world was shaped by Jehovah's Witnesses, and that was all I was taught for 23 years. So when I stopped going, when I made the break, when I escaped, when I left, when I became free, it was almost like this veil had lifted, and it took time. It didn't happen overnight. It took time, and I started just thinking about things independently. And my mother, she was still a witness, and she would give me the magazines, and at first I didn't want to read them. I just wanted nothing to do with them. I looked at them and I just saw them as evil, very evil. And I was looking at the images. And, for years people would say there were subliminal images in the magazines, and I couldn't see it at the time. And then I started to see it, all those covert messages in the images and the wording, how things were written. And I just started to look independently and started to see something else. What the Watchtower uses is very subtle language, very subtle. So I started to just look at things differently and started to think without the constraints of the Watchtower and their philosophy and their theology and their thinking. I started thinking broadly. So I'd gone from this very black and white thinking, this is right or it's wrong, to thinking in colour. But before I could think in colour, I'd be seeing the grey matter. So, for example, I would, Jehovah's Witnesses would say drunkenness is wrong. Period. It's wrong. You shouldn't get drunk. But then when I was a Jehovah's Witness, stuck to that. But then when I left after a while, I started to look at it in grey. And I said, well, why are the reasons that people get drunk? See, starting to think differently. People could get drunk because they're depressed, they're unhappy, things have happened in their life, and they turn to alcohol. And I'm not saying that that's right, but there are reasons why people get drunk. But then on the other end of the scale, it could just be, a group of people going out, having a party, having fun, which Jehovah's Witnesses know nothing about, I have to say. But they could just be having a little bit of fun, and they've had a glass too much, and they're a little bit tipsy, it gets out of hand. they have a hangover next day and they're sober a bit later. Nothing wrong in that. So I started to look at things differently, and then started to look at things in colour and to say, do you know what? There's nothing wrong in having fun, having a drink, you know, and yes, you don't want to do it excessively to ruin your health, yeah, and you don't want to become a lush, but going out and having a couple of drinks with your mates, nothing wrong in that. Nothing wrong. It doesn't mean you're going to end up getting raped or, you know, turn violent and start beating up on people or, you know, smoking pot. It doesn't mean that, you know, which is what Jehovah's Witnesses would have you believe. So yeah, I started to look at things in colour, and so I started not just to look just at my life, but also what I was believing. And then I started to look really broadly. And I've been through the stages where I started to question God. You know, I started to question him. And I was like, if there really is a God, then why have we got all of these problems? Why are these problems not being resolved? You know, and I had that, you know, and at one point my mother said to me, she said, you know what, you're far removed from Jehovah. And, you know, I was like, no, I'm not far removed from Jehovah. I feel that I, having left the Witnesses, was able to have a relationship with God, a relationship with the divine, the almighty, the all-powerful, the supreme one. You know, I was able to have a relationship. Whereas when I was a Jehovah's Witness, my relationship was with this organization, this man-made organization, who tried to say they were acting on behalf of God, and you were limited with all these rules and regulations and, you know, limitations. So yes, if that meant I was far from Jehovah, I was happy to be far from Jehovah. But I started to read my Bible independently of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and in fact I chucked away the Jehovah's Witness Bible. I went to the Christian bookshop and I bought an independent Bible. I bought the Thompson Chain reference Bible, and I started reading that. And as I started reading it, I started to get to know the Almighty, the All-Powerful, and started to see all the different facets of this God and its personality and all the rest of it. And I've been through stages where I've really questioned, is there even a God? And at one point I was just an atheist. I just didn't believe that there is a God. And over time I've sort of gone from atheist to agnostic. And I'm at the point now where I believe that there is a much higher power. Without a shadow of a doubt, I really independently believe that there is a higher power who created the heavens, the earth, who created man, who created everything, and is all divine. I believe that. Is he a God? I don't know. Is his name Jehovah? I don't know. Is he Jesus? I don't know. Did he have a son named Jesus who came to earth? We know that from historical facts that a man named Jesus walked the earth. He claimed to be the Son of God. Was he actually the Son of God? I don't know. I need more proof than that. And I've said before in other videos that if Jesus turned up in my local area and started to raise the dead, turn water into wine, heal the sick, do all these miracles, cast out demons, and claim that he was the Son of God, I'd be running a mile. I'd be like, nah, he's kind of like, doing some kind of black magic here. I wouldn't be saying, oh, let me just follow him. It's kind of like David Blaine comes to Birmingham and I'm like, yes, I'll be one of your disciples, David Blaine. Ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen. And that's how I feel about Jesus. And the only way that Christianity grew was because of the recruitment practices, like what Jehovah's Witnesses and all religion do. They go out and they recruit. So that's where I stand on God. I believe that there is an almighty power. So I'm spiritual in that respect. I believe that there is an almighty power who created the heavens and the earth. I believe that a man called Jesus walked the earth. Is he the Son of God? I don't know. And the one thing about religion is they are absolutely afraid to say they don't know. They feel that they have to provide, and Jehovah's Witnesses particularly feel that they have to provide an answer, even if that answer's wrong, even if that answer's going to mislead people. They feel that they have to provide an answer, but there is no shame in saying, I don't know. And that's where I stand. I'm not ashamed to say, I don't know if Jesus is the Son of God. I don't know. And as for the Bible, I believe, and I've had this so many times with my Jehovah's Witness family, this conversation, I believe that the Bible was written by man, and we know it is. That's a fact. Is it inspired of God? I personally don't believe it's inspired by God. And I certainly don't believe it's God's word. However, I do believe that it is a good guide. It's got some great principles in, so good that lots of the world, wherever you go, whether they're Christians or non-Christians, a lot of the modern world uses Bible principles for business, for the legal system, for family morals and stuff. So I do believe it is a good guide. It is filled with great advice and some fantastic stuff, but it's also filled with lots of inconsistencies. Would I base my belief system on it? No way. No way. Absolutely no way would I believe my entire scriptural or my entire belief system on it. No, but I do believe it's got some good principles in it. Was Jesus, and interestingly, I had this conversation, the next thing I'm going to mention, I had this conversation with my friend yesterday, and I said, because my friend is trying to convince me that Christianity is not necessarily Jehovah's Witnesses, but Christianity is the true way of life, the true religion. And I said, are you saying that if there is a God, do you believe that God is a Christian? And he was like, yes, of course God's a Christian. I don't believe that for a second. And neither do I believe that God is a Jehovah's Witness. No way, Jose. There's more chance of my cat is sitting here right next to me. There's more chance of my cat of me following. There's more chance of my cat being a Jehovah's Witness than God is. If there is a God, seriously, isn't that right, Bobby? My cat agrees. There's more chance of my cat being a Jehovah's Witness than God himself. So I don't believe that God is a Jehovah's Witness. I believe that God is devoid of religion. Religion is something that man has made. Even Jesus, when you read the Bible, Jesus says, go make followers of disciples of people. He didn't tell people to become Christians. You know, he didn't say go and become Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, he just goes and go make disciples, spread the gospel, spread this good news, the message that I'm telling you, that I'm sharing with you. And if there's anything that I do acknowledge, believe and think is of great value in the Bible, it is the gospel and the teachings of the gospel. So yeah, so that's where I stand. I hope that answers it. I know it's a long roundabout answer for you, but do I believe in God? I believe that in the higher power, the divine, the almighty. If there is a God, I don't believe that his name is, if his name is Jehovah, I don't believe that we should be addressing him as Jehovah. You know, would you, when I was growing up, you did not dare to call your elders by their first name. You didn't call your parents, your aunts, your uncles, or your grandparents, or even older people in the community. You did not call them by their first name. That's a sign of disrespect. So if Jehovah is God's name, then I don't think that we should be using that. And as for the Jehovah's Witnesses doing all of these wicked, terrible acts in God's name, it's just a sin. It's a sin. So no. So I do believe in the divine, the almighty. I don't know if Jesus is the Son of God. I don't know. And I do believe that the Bible is a great book for advice and living by. It has some great standards and principles in. I certainly wouldn't base my belief in the Bible, and I don't believe it's from God. I don't believe it's inspired by God. I certainly don't believe it's God's word. And is God a Jehovah's Witness? Definitely not. My cat has more chance of becoming a Jehovah's Witness tomorrow than God has. So there you go, guys. I hope that answers it for you. Anyway, have a wonderful day. If you've not subscribed to my channel, please do so. I'm on a mission to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of April. So please help me out and give me that. Click on the red button and click the bell. And if you previously subscribed, thank you so much. Listen, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you soon.